Hi there. In this video, we are going to take a look at some Power Automate Cloudflow scenarios, triggers, and actions. We'll look at some scenarios where Cloudflows give us some automation opportunities, and we'll discuss triggers, those things that start the Cloudflow, as well as actions, the things that Cloudflow does. We're also going to cover Cloudflow approvals, logic actions, and we'll touch on Power Automate expressions. One personal productivity opportunity is to create a task in a planner based on an Office 365 Outlook calendar event being created. You might be running a project and you might have a calendar set up for that project. With this approach, you'll be able to set up a task for that specific meeting within your planner. The trigger here is the Outlook event being created, and this could be one where the subject is of a specific nature, and the action could then be to create a task within a specific planner and within a specific bucket within that planner. And on the right hand side, we can see what the flow details might look like for that particular Cloudflow. Another productivity opportunity could be to route emails that have been received with a specific subject and add them as an entry into a channel within a team. And monitoring emails might be something that you do if you are running an IT help desk. Approvals give organizations the opportunity to create simple approval processes. Imagine an onboarding scenario where a contract needs to be approved before the onboarding can commence. In this case, when a document is created within a SharePoint library, there are a number of actions that take place. And depending on whether or not the document is or is not approved, it would then be possible to move the document to a separate library. It's extremely popular to run data operations and have Power Automate Cloudflows that are triggered based on these. The trigger in this case could be when a Dataverse row is modified. The flow could check whether or not the total payments equal the invoice value, and if they are, update a true-false column within the Dataverse table to indicate that the invoice record is fully paid. We've already talked about Cloudflow triggers. Triggers are those things that cause a Cloudflow to start running. Some example triggers include the receipt of an email, a database record being created or even modified, a Microsoft form being completed, or a message received into a Microsoft Teams channel. It's important to understand that triggers can have conditions. For example, we could specify that the trigger will only run if the email is received from a specific email address, or that a book loan is marked as returned. There are a number of basic trigger types, and these include manual triggers, and in some cases we call them button triggers because we simply tell the flow to run. And these have similarities with Power Apps triggered Cloudflows. The Power App triggers the flow and supplies in any necessary parameters. There are event-based triggers, such as the completion of a Microsoft form, and a very popular trigger type is one around a database change. A record may be created, modified, or even deleted. Finally, there are scheduled flows, and these are flows that run at regular intervals. Quite often this is daily, they can be weekly or even hourly. Whereas a Cloudflow will only ever have one trigger, it is likely to have many actions. A Cloudflow action is a fully configured step within your flow. And in the example on the right hand side, we're looking at a Dataverse get rows operation. It uses input from the previous step to understand which row it needs to get, and it creates for us an output that we can use later on. And in this case, we may need some of the details associated with the loan to understand more of the details associated with the book that's been taken out. there are a vast array of Cloudflow actions. And these will very much depend on the connector that you're using or the logic that you're trying to introduce into your Power Automate Cloudflow. Approvals are actions that are native to Power Automate, but they're not exclusive to Power Automate. They simplify approval processing, and on the screen shown, the user is approving a book loan request. And once it has been approved, the flow can keep running according to the logic that you've introduced into your Cloudflow. Approvals are visible within Microsoft Teams through email or, as shown here, through the Power Automate service. In many cases, you're going to want to introduce logic into your cloud flows, and there are a series of logic controls that are shown on the right-hand side. In the case of a condition, you can add in logic that will produce a true or false response, which means that your flow can go in one of two directions. And approvals are a good example of this. A switch is similar to a condition apart from the fact there are multiple options. It could be that an item is created and the priority is either low, medium or high. Based on this, you may wish your flow to take different routes and perform different actions. And apply to each is a set of actions that apply to everything that exists within an array or a table. An example of this is if you are planning an event and you had a table with all of the people that had been invited. You might want to send them an email reminder so the flow would get all of the items, and for each item or delegate that it finds, it would send out a bespoke email. A do until operation runs until a particular condition is satisfied, and we can think of this as a looping function. Finally, a terminate action allows us to end the flow, and we can indicate whether or not the flow has been successful or not within this. Power Automate expressions allow us to interact with a data object, and we do this using the Power Automate Cloudflow expression language. It's a more advanced way of writing your Power Automate cloud flows, but they can help them to run in a more efficient and a more powerful way. And we'll be using these within the exercises. We can use expressions to select a specific piece of data from an array or table of data. We can make it transform the data in some way, or we could introduce some conditional logic that's executed immediately. Very often people will use expressions purely to format a string of data, such as a date field, and we'll see this within the exercises. In this video, we've covered scenarios appropriate to Power Automate cloud flows, discussed triggers and actions. And in future lessons, we'll be creating our own Power Automate cloud flows. I'll see you there.